Welcome to year 2 of A Mick, a Mook, and a Mike.
Hosted by 4-time Emmy-nominated producer
Frank Pace. And retired New York City firefighter, 9/11 first responder, and Vietnam vet, Billy O'Connor.
Today's guests: actress, Growing Pains, director, A Million Little Things, Grey's Anatomy, High School Musical, Joanna Kerns.
My brother.
Frankie, my boy, how are you today, pal? How's my brother?
Fine, how are you today?
I'm pretty good. I was talking to Derek before the show, and he told me that Scotch is making a comeback. I never knew it went out to begin with. I mean, that was always my drink of choice, Scotch. I didn't know that Scotch was out.
If you put lined up in front of me the best Scotch, the best bourbon, the best rye, the best whiskey, the best vodka, the best turpentine,
I would reach over and drink them all.
the best cough medicine. I would like the cough medicine the best. No, seriously, because I don't have any taste for alcohol at all. I mean, I can't even explain. It tastes so bad to me, so alien. Every time I see and when I watch television or a movie, every time somebody takes a shot, they go, "Oh." They don't go, "Ah, that's delicious." That's delicious.
Yeah, that is bullshit, though. You're right. You're right. Because everybody says, I miss the taste. I miss the taste of beer, and I do miss the taste of beer.
I don't like beer. You know what I like? I like the first half a beer of Guinness on draft.
Yeah, that's true.
And then after that, I don't like it either.
But Derek, you're a Scotch drinker, right?
Yeah.
And he told me the Scotch is making a comeback. And I said, I never knew it went out. I never thought, originally Scotch in this country, who made all the money from Scotch was the Kennedys.
Mm-hmm.
That's true as God. The old man was getting $1 on every bottle of Scotch that was brought into the country.
Wow.
I just wish that when people have microphones, they'd actually use them.
So anyway.
No.
So, I mean, can we talk about recoiling at the taste of alcohol? Everybody in the movies recoils at the taste of alcohol. They take a sip and they go.
Well, that's true.
I mean, tequila. When I was watching. What was the movie with Travolta and
Travolta?
Travolta.
Or Tom Cruise?
No.
Oh,
Saturday Night Fever?
Sam Jackson?
Sam Jackson. What was that movie?
Quentin Tarantino's movie.
Yeah.
God damn it! What is the name of that movie?
Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, Pulp Fiction. Again, they were taking sips and they go.
Yeah, that never bothered me. No, I take a sip and it would just go down. I mean,
I think my opinion is you are correct. Alcohol definitely is not something. It doesn't taste like sweet tea in the South, but there are some alcohols, some types, some brands that taste much better.
By the way, our guest today is Joanna Kerns, actress, director, and she'll be coming up when we stop talking about this.
Hey, Billy.
Stuff.
Well, do you notice that every time?
No, I just.
Do you notice it's either me talking or you talking? Somebody has to cut in.
Yeah, somebody has to come in who has remember because.
Well, I guess so.
Because somebody doesn't remember to put it coming up in 5 minutes. Coming up in 10 minutes.
Let's go down this alcohol road. You want sweet? You want good taste in alcohol? You can do things with rum.
Yeah, that'll kill
and make it taste like like an umbrella drink. You can do things to make them sweet as hell.
Why don't you just drink the umbrella drink?
Well, you can, but you can put enough rum in to knock you on your ass, and you'd still take an umbrella.
But the rum doesn't. Again, my taste are so skewed that I can't enjoy anything.
From a guy who's not only an alcoholic, I'm a reformed alcoholic. I don't know if there's such a thing as a reformed alcoholic, but I haven't had a drink in 13, 14 years. But from a guy who, believe me, couldn't open my eyes without a shot in the morning, I think rum is the worst of all the different booze because it's so sweet. It's like syrup. And you want to get hung over, you get drunk on rum. I mean, it's terrible. But I was telling Derek, he's a Scotch drinker. And I don't think anybody's even... If you walked into a bar today and ordered a Rob Roy, I bet you 9 out of 10 bartenders wouldn't even know what's in it because it's sort of like an old-fashioned. Remember when you were a kid, an old-fashioned was a popular drink for a woman, right?
Sure.
Nobody drinks old fashions anymore.
No, that's not true.
Do they?
Oh, it's like a big deal right now.
Get out of here!
Not to contradict you on the air.
No, I'm glad you did. I mean, because
it's like a crazy drink right now.
Get out of here!
Yeah, but I going to get in trouble for saying this, but Derek, you're whiter than Billy.
Shit.
Look. So, but old fashioned's made a big comeback. Then that's what's made a comeback because
What's in an old fashioned?
You take whether it's a bourbon old fashioned or rye old fashioned, you take bitters and a little bit of sugar, and you muddle it at the bottom of a glass. You throw in whatever drink, whatever booze it is, and then you put an orange and a cherry on top of it. That's it. But what happened? Did I leave the mic again? But yeah. So,
okay, so explain to me then a martini.
Okay, I will. One of my favorite lines in the world is, "Why don't you get out of those wet clothes and into a dry martini?" but a martini, depending on whether it's a vodka or a gin martini, the proper martini is gin, of course. What you do is you take parts gin and a half a part dry vermouth.
A half a part meaning what? A drop?
Yeah, a couple of drops of dry vermouth. Now, I like my martinis dry, which
means it's
super dry, less vermouth.
You mean straight gin?
Pretty much. So I used to take the vermouth, run it in the glass, run it around, and toss it, and then put gin. But you want to make it cold. You know, a martini's got to be cold, in my opinion. Now, what's odd about it, you take a martini, and again, I was telling Derek, he could drink 4 gin and tonics, no problem. 4 shots of gin. But if you take those 4 shots of gin and just put a couple of drops of dry vermouth in each one, you're drinking martinis. 4 martinis, you're pretty much legless.
How can that be?
There's a synergism between vermouth and gin. Same thing with Manhattans. If you drink, you're a rye drinker. Okay, so you drink 4 shots of whiskey, no big deal. You take 4 shots of whiskey and put 4 drops of sweet vermouth in it, and may I drink 4 Manhattans? You drink 4 Manhattans, you're in trouble. There's something about the synergism of vermouth and whiskey.
What is vermouth made out of?
More alcohol. I don't know exactly what it's made out of, but it's only about
more alcohol.
Vermouth is only about, say, 67% proof. Yeah. Whereas, gin is like 87, and so is rye and scotch. But now if you take a Rob Roy, which is just scotch, instead of rye or bourbon, you use scotch and you put a couple of drops of sweet vermouth, and now you got a Rob Roy. And 4 Rob Roys will do you some damage too, whereas 4 shots of scotch won't. But interestingly enough, if you ask when I was in the South, when I was tending bar at Pat O'Brien's in New Orleans, and somebody comes in and asks for a whiskey and soda, you give them bourbon. Whereas in New York or in California, if you come in and ask for a whiskey and soda, he's getting rye. He's getting like a Canadian Club or something, or he's getting rye. He's not getting bourbon. But their whiskey is bourbon, so they make everything with bourbon. Manhattan, you get bourbon.
No.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was your liquor and whiskey lesson today.
But speaking of 100 proof, why don't we bring on Joanna Kerns, who is a great star of Growing Pains in the 80s and 90s and has become a terrific director.
You see that segue? You see how smooth that was?
Right.
Now, there's smooth liquor, but that was a smooth segue.
As Kentucky bourbon.
Which ain't that smooth. That was smooth. Let's bring on Joanna Kerns. I'm looking forward to meeting her.
Derek, are we going to bring her on or what?
All right. Here you go.
Hey, there you are. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Long time no see.
It has been a long time, hasn't it?
It has. But it's great to see
you too. And you're actually directing as we speak. Last night, you directed last night.
I'm actually the co-executive producing director of a show called A Million Little Things. We shoot in Vancouver. And it's been crazy. I just finished an episode that I was directing, but then I had another director on set last night. So it's just we're trying to make TV shows in the time of COVID, and it's a little insane.
Yes, it is indeed. And you said you're in Vancouver, correct?
I'm in Vancouver.
And
yeah.
How many positive COVID tests did you run into this week?
Not so many. It's just that we have a situation where if somebody tests positive, they're out for 10 days. But then you go back with all the contact tracing, and if you are in close contact with somebody within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes cumulative a day, which is easy on a film set, you're considered a close contact. So you have to sit out for 5 days and hope you don't get sick.
And if you're like us at Warner Brothers, you're hoping to hell that nobody tests positive on the cast.
I know.
Because then that person can't work for 10 days, and then you're
well, yeah, they can't work for
screwed.
10. They can't work for 10, and they, it's just they take out a lot of people when that happens, because you've got hairdressers and makeup artists and all the people that come close to you throughout the day. So it's plus your co-stars.
Yep.
So it's I can't wait.
Incredibly expensive. I'm not in the business. Hi, Joanna. I'm Billy O'Connor, by the way. I'm Frank's partner.
I didn't introduce you.
No, but that's all right. It's a small fault of a good man.
Hi, Billy.
Oh, real pleasure
And
to know you,
I didn't
Joanna.
interview.
That's okay. She can't see me.
That's
so-
all right.
Okay.
We'll interview Derek later. We'll get to it. But so, not being in the business, you can't shoot around like a co-star or something like that. It just affects the whole production. It's got to be terribly expensive.
It is, and I think all the shows are. I mean, when this first hit, I was in New York. I was shooting FBI from February 12th to March 12th when my episode was shut down in New York City in 2020. So that was before we had a vaccine. That's before we knew what any of this stuff was. We have pretty strict protocol, but it doesn't mean that somebody can't get it, as we are learning that even if you're vaxxed and boosted, you can still get it. But at least it doesn't seem to be something that's going to kill you. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, when I read how many people over the age of 70 are dead from this stuff, that's when I started treating it like it was malaria or bubonic plague, But tell me, what is Vancouver like? It's got to be a great town, right? I've heard a lot of good things about Vancouver.
Vancouver is fabulous. People are great. It's beautiful. I mean, it does rain a lot up here. It's rainy and cold right now, but I love Vancouver, and we've got a great crew, and the cast is great. And I mean, I'm very happy here. So,
And this is your third year there, or your
this is the fourth year of the show. This is my first year as the producing director. And I'm doing about 6, maybe 7 of them.
Great.
Out of 20. So it's a big job, and I prep all the other directors, and it's fun. It's fun to be on this side of it.
Speaking of fun, how did you get your job on Growing Pains?
Well, you remember that story.
I don't remember that story because Growing Pains was going, and I interviewed with Mike Sullivan. You don't know the story, as an associate producer on Growing Pains, and Mike Sullivan didn't hire me.
So you wound up being his boss, right?
No, he hired Henry Johnson instead.
Right.
And then I took over on Head of the Class as associate producer for a year, and then I produced it the second year. But so I wasn't. Growing Pains was already on a year, and I guess Marlins and Black were there before Mike Sullivan and the other two.
Well, actually, I think Mike I think Neil Marlins brought that material to Mike Sullivan, and Mike literally had some connections because he'd been at the network before, and he brought it in and he sold it, and we wound up on the air, and we were the last pilot to be picked up and the first predicted to fail, and the rest is history.
And that was 80. That was 85.
85. And I got the job, open call, like everybody else. You'd go in and you'd audition, and I went through about 3 or 4 auditions with just Neil Marlins and Carol Black and Mike Sullivan, and then they sent me to the network to test. And when I got to the network, it was just me and the actress, and I'm going to blank, who did Alice, the waitress. We were the 2 women that were testing, and then there was a room full of men that we tested with. And I thought, well, I've got a 50-50 chance of getting this. And I was feeling pretty good about it. And I go away. That was a Friday, and I didn't hear anything, and that's not good. And then I get a call on the weekend saying I have to go back to the network and test again because they want to do kind of a chemistry read, right?
Right.
Well, I go back to the network, and this time I walk in, and it's every other actress I've ever been up for a role against, filling the room, and 2 guys. And one of them was Alan Thicke, and the other guy, I can't even remember his name.
What?
And we went in and we auditioned, and I guess we had good chemistry, and I got the job.
Was that Linda Lavin that you went in the room with?
No, it wasn't Linda Lavin.
Beth Allen?
It was the blonde actress who was Linda Lavin's sidekick.
Beth Allen was Kiss My Grits.
Yes. Not Beth. It wasn't Beth.
Well,
it was
there was another third one. I don't. I've run
That's pretty good.
I've run out of Alice names.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. I think that's pretty good. I think it's pretty good. So it was, and then we started the next day. I mean, and we shot a pilot, and I remember I shot another pilot that same season that was a drama, and I was 4th or 5th banana on that show, and it was Richard Allen Simmons, who wrote Columbo. He had a pilot, and it was kind of like a LA Law kind of thing, and I thought it was really cool and really, I'd be in this ensemble cast. And then Growing Pains, I was literally one of the first. I think they hired Kirk Cameron first, and they were matching all of us to him.
Right.
Then I was first, and then Alan came after that. But I really thought that the other one was going to go, and I never thought that Growing Pains was going to go. It felt like an orphan child at the time. And
well, it's funny. It's funny you said that, because we always thought that when we were doing Head of the Class, that Growing Pains and Night Court were the darlings of the studio, and we were always the little orphan Annie of the group. And so I guess Night Court felt the same. We always thought that we were, bringing up rear to Growing Pains, but Growing Pains was a terrific show. And 8 years, 166 episodes.
Wow,
something like that. We came in. I think we came in mid-season, and then it was over the summer in reruns, which there aren't anymore, that it took off. And after the 28th episode, they called us in and had us sit down. And as we're sitting down, I'm going, "Oh God, we're being canceled." They said, "We're going to pick you up for the next 6 years."
Wow. I mean, you had. Look, we all know that half-an-hour comedies are the greatest job in the world, and I've had the greatest job in the world for 35 years. But to get a show on the air for 8 years, and to get every year to know where your next job is coming from and where you're going to work the next day in show business, that's a terrific.
It was terrific for me, because up till this point, first of all, I was going through a divorce. Alan and I were both going through divorces. I mean, I didn't own a car, because I lost the car, and I had to buy one right when Growing Pains started to shoot. And big investment, and just how my life changed overnight with this show. Mm-hmm. And the gift that keeps on giving over the years. I mean, I think it's. I mean, I got to direct on Growing Pains. That's how I got into DGA. It changed. It just changed everything for me.
Now, correct me, because I'm not in the business. So when you're doing a show like that, is it an 8-hour, 5-day-a-week thing? It's not, right? You're doing more than 8 hours, right? It's not a 40-hour-a-week gig.
She'll come at it from both sides of the coin. She'll come at it as a director, and she'll come at it as an actress. So why don't you address that?
Well, if you're doing a sitcom, first of all, sitcom is the best life for the director and the actors. The writers writers could be doing 16-hour days. It's a very hard job to maintain, and you have to understand, today they do, 13 episodes of things. Back then we were doing 22 or 26 episodes in a season, and they have to keep churning it out. It has to keep up to the level that it was. And we were a number 2 or 3 show for a good solid almost 5 years. And then it started to fall off. But it was really exciting during that time. But the hard work, we would come to work. What was great about it is Alan had 2 boys. I had my daughter. Tracy had a, sister and 2 other siblings. Kirk had his family. He had, Candace and his other sister. There were kids everywhere. And we had a trailer on the back lot where we put in games, video games for them. And they kind of ran around and we could do our work. It wasn't like a film show, like the show I'm doing now, where you couldn't do that. I mean, you rehearse in a sitcom, you rehearse it like a play. And you read it the first day, you put it about on its feet, and then the second day the producers come in and they look at it and they tweak it, and then the third day the network comes in and then they give notes and they tweak it, and then the 4th day we would do camera blocking, and the 5th day we would shoot. And because we had kids, we had limited hours, because kids can only work
Right. That's
9 hours total, right?
Right.
So if they're minors, because they have to go to school and we'd have to bank hours. So it was the dream job. Plus, the actors got every 4th week off.
Yep.
And near the end of the run, we were doing our show in 4
4
days.
days.
So I had, 10 days off every 3 weeks.
Yeah.
How does that work? How does that
Well,
happen?
because the excuse is that the writers need time to catch up on the scripts. So how does
Wow.
I'm going to jump around. So how does directing a situation? I'm asking this for Billy. How does directing a half an hour situation comedy multi-camera compare with not compare, but is contrasted to directing a single camera film show?
I think of it this way. 4 camera, it used to be 3 camera, but we have 4 cameras now. We're making sitcoms the same way Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball figured out how to do it, where it's all shot from the front. It's like you're sitting out in the audience and it's shot from the front. So it's kind of a broader lighting palette, and you shoot all your coverage of every character all at once, so that and then you might do 2 passes to get certain reactions, but it's simpler in a way because you're not, let me see if I can explain this, you're not crossing the line. For instance, if you're sitting across the table from somebody in a movie, in a single camera, they call it single camera, but right now, Frank, you don't know this, but I shoot 3 cameras every setup.
Right.
So I'm shooting, a master shot, and then I'm shooting, a sub-master and a piece of coverage all the time. So we're doing the same thing that single camera, 4 camera directors are doing, but we're
Lighting it differently.
we light it differently, and we're still lighting 1 camera film dramas like A Million Little Things the same way that we've always done it, where you light one side of the room in one direction, and then you flip the cameras go to the other side of the room to shoot the other person. So it's infinitely more time consuming. And I've been on shows that a minimum day is 12 hours, and you can work up to 16 hours. It's during COVID, they cut that back because they don't want people tired. They don't want people sick. But for years, that was the norm. It's a much more intensive experience as a single camera director, because I have to pick all my locations. They aren't sets. It isn't established lighting. And then I have to choreograph where all my actors go and make it in the schedule I have.
Yep.
So
and then there's no hiatuses on a single camera show either. You just go straight through. So
Yeah,
it's a much harder job.
My point was the amount of time you spent on Growing Pains with the cast members for over an 8-year period. That's more time you spend with your family. I mean, you watched them grow up with you. I mean,
we did, and I used to call Alan my favorite daytime husband. It was we had a good time, and you do spend more time. We spent more time with those kids than their families did.
Yeah.
And I think it was hard for those kids when they went back to school too, because they'd been with us and it was fun and they had a lot of attention, and you know, the audience would come in. Audience night was just great, and I know, Frank, you know that. It's just so much fun. And the kids all loved that. And then they'd go back to school and their life was not as
exciting. That's for sure. Why don't you tell me a few of your Alan, or tell us a few of your favorite Alan stories? Alan Thicke.
Oh my God, I don't know. There are so many with Alan. It's you know, he was quite the ladies' man.
I know.
I've read where you called him a rascal, and I was going to ask you to elaborate on the rascal.
Yeah, the rascal. Oh my God. I mean, and he was a charmer. He was really a charmer. And
Alan is also Robin Thicke's father.
Yeah. Robin used to run around that stage all the time. You know, I think my favorite thing about Alan used to go into the audience. He loved to go. We always had a warm-up guy in the audience, and he would go into the audience. And oftentimes my mother would come, and my dad would come, and my daughter was there. And he'd get up in front of the audience, and he had this joke. He did tell the same jokes a lot, over and over again. And he'd say, "I know a lot of you were wondering about the chemistry between, you know, Maggie and I, and Joanna and I, you know, and of course, I want you to know, you don't have to worry about it. There's nothing going on. This relationship is purely sexual." And my mother would go, "No." But he usually, he had a way. He was really clever, and he could make you laugh till you cry, and usually at your own expense, especially mine. He used to come in every day in the morning, and we'd have this craft service table, and he'd cut all the tops off the muffins and take them to his trailer. So everybody else would come in there, and there'd be nothing. Everything had been, you know, all the best part was gone. So one day I go in and I take all the muffin tops, and he was beside himself. But no, there was just a lot of stuff. We had a lot of fun, and he was a producer and a writer, and before he had our show, and I learned a lot from him because he had just come off. Thick of the Night was the talk show it was supposed to take down. Yes, and he was a big star here, and he was supposed to be the answer to Johnny Carson. He was going to be the new Johnny Carson, and it failed miserably. And I remember when we were launching Growing Pains, and we would go into these upfronts, and all the reporters were there, and they would say, "Well, no, what makes you think you can do this after this failure?" And he had such an ability to make fun of himself. And he said, "You know, I just didn't want my picture on a bus leaving town to be the last thing I remember. You know, and he said, this is perfect for me. I love this role." And he did. He loved it. And he worked very hard, and it was a family. It became a family.
Speaking of people that, what am I trying to say? Speaking of rascals, Kirk Cameron was a pretty big star in his own right, wasn't he? I think he was the biggest star in show business for a period of 5-6 years in the 80s and 90s. Tell us what that was like.
Well, he was like a juggernaut. I mean, when we came back after those summer reruns, he couldn't go anywhere without being mobbed by young girls. I mean, it was the same kind of the reaction that Leonardo got. and it was interesting for Kirk. He wasn't really comfortable with it, and I think it kind of got to him. I don't know. It's well known that he found religion,
Right.
Which changed the dynamic of our cast and our family, because none of us were, and he felt like everybody should be at the time.
Right.
And he's since apologized, because he said, "Look, I was a kid, I was, teenagers, it's their way or the highway."
Sure.
And he had a lot of power on our show. So
On the show, let me just ask you. On the show, he was like he had bought into religion, and he expected everybody else to buy into religion. That caused a conflict of sorts.
well, he started, kind of censoring what he wanted the writers to write. And, and it was because of that the writers that really made our show successful, Dan Gunselman, Steve Marshall, that's another story, but Dan Gunselman, that's why they left the last year.
Right.
Because they couldn't tolerate the pressure to not, like, he wouldn't kiss a girl that wasn't his real girlfriend, and he wouldn't, it just became
Too much.
It became too much.
Right.
Yeah.
And the whole premise of the show was about this kid who's dancing on the edge of temptation, and through the love and support of his family makes a better decision, not always the right decision, but a better decision. You can't be perfect and have comedy.
Right.
Right. Makes
It
sense.
just isn't funny. It just isn't funny anymore.
And in year 7, Leo DiCaprio joined the cast.
He did.
How was he?
Oh, he was fabulous. Oh my God.
Did you see it?
Did you know then it was going to be?
Well, that's how yeah, first of all, I mean, he could impersonate anyone.
Wow.
Frank, he would do you. He would do. I don't know if you remember that first movie that he did with.
Could he do DB?
This Boy's Life. This
Uh-huh.
Boy's Life. With Bobby De Niro,
Right.
where Bobby De Niro used to do this thing with his lighter, and I don't even remember if the scene, but Leonardo impersonated De Niro to a T in the movie, and I've always wondered if that's how he got the part. But our producers at the time, who weren't the guys that we were really close to, who had left, basically let him go off the show after a certain while because they didn't think he was funny. And I think I've been begging for like 6 years to direct. And I finally got the episode where he left the show. And that's how I got my card, was on that episode. But I did see it because he was so confident and witty and smart and relaxed as a kid. He wasn't a typical child actor.
Wow.
A lot of these kids get roboticized in a way because they're playing a part. But
Yeah.
he was just so
He was an old soul.
he was magic. He's always been magic.
And did you guys also have Brad Pitt on it?
We did. We had Brad twice.
Yeah, we only had him on once on Head of the Class, but when he walked on the stage, all the girls wanted to throw their panties at him.
Oh no! He was a dreamboat. I think he was all of 27. I remember it. You do so many episodes, and I don't think it was 8 years, Frank. I think it was
7.
Maybe it was 8 from the time we did the pilot,
Right.
but I think it was 7 seasons.
Right.
And no, he came on twice. Once he did a character, Feet of Clay, where he played a rock star who turned out to be a jerk. And Jason takes Mike to this concert to see his hero, and the guy turns out to be a jerk. It's called Feet of Clay. And that was Brad. And then I think another time was Tracy Gold's first kiss, in real life and on camera. So she can say she kissed Brad Pitt.
Do you keep in touch with any of the actors at all? I'm sure you do.
You know, I've been in touch a little with Tracy, and in fact, she was the one who called me when Alan passed. And I mean, these kids. I mean, he was like a dad, Jeremy, and I mean, it just. I saw them all at the memorial. It was pretty sad.
Yeah, and Alan, if I remember correctly, he passed. He had a heart attack playing the hockey game. Is that right?
Wow.
He had the same thing happen to him that happened to Bill Paxton and it happened to John Ritter. He had a aortic aneurysm.
Right.
And so there was really, by the time they got him in the operating room, there was nothing they could do. And he was making jokes when he went off the ice, I heard.
Wow. Figures.
I know.
At least he went out laughing.
He went out laughing. He went out with his skates on.
Yep.
I mean, I'm sure he's happy about that.
Let me ask you another thing. Coming up, you had a relationship with Burgess Meredith. Why don't you talk a little bit about Burgess?
Oh my God. I was studying with Peggy Fury. Peggy Fury was quite the acting coach. And she, I mean, I used to be her secretary to pay for my classes, and she had two groups of actors. In the young group, the kid group, we were all, I was like 20. And the kid group was Michelle Pfeiffer and Tom Cruise and Eric Stoltz and Sean Penn and Alexander Goodenough, Donna Dixon. I mean, it was you can't believe the movie stars that came out of this class. And then in my class was Jeff Goldblum and Ed Begley Jr. and Annette O'Toole, Bruno Kirby.
Wow.
I mean, even in that group, there was a lot of. We've all done well. We've all done well. And Peggy had recommended Michelle in her younger class to Marty Bregman for Scarface. And at the same time, after he cast her, Marty said, well, do you have any actresses that would be right for the Four Seasons? And the Four Seasons was my first series, and I played the Bess Armstrong role.
And that,
remember,
Alan Alda was in it? That was the Alan Alda.
Alan Alda produced it and wrote it, and that was my thing. But Burgess lived close to Peggy in Malibu and said, I'm doing a play in New York, and I'm looking for this kind of, and she recommended me. And that's how I got to know Burgess. And it all kind of fed into each other. And she had a lot. I think he really respected her because she was part of the group theater in New York and started her own school. She taught with Lee Strasberg for years and then had her own.
Now, was the play Ulysses in Nighttown? Was that?
Yes.
That was the play?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
That's heavyweight stuff. Joyce.
Yes, James Joyce. And it was Burgess. It was Zero Mostel.
Wow.
And it was Tommy Lee Jones and Fanula Flanagan. I mean, it was
some real
David
heavyweights.
Ogden Stiers. It was, yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I knew Fanula Flanagan from, I did a movie with her in 1984, I think, 1983-84, called The Winner Never Quits. She played Keith Carradine's mother. She played in the movie.
She's amazing. She's a wonderful actress.
She was a wonderful actress, and she told me one thing. She said, "Don't ever think of the acting company as your family, because as soon as this show is over, everybody's going to go their separate ways." So
let me ask you, Joanna, how old were you when you were doing Ulysses in Nighttown? You had come up originally as a dancer, is that correct? A gymnast and then a dancer?
Yeah, I was a dancer. I was a chorus girl, and I had done Two Gentlemen of Verona before that for Joe Papp, but I was on the national tour, and my roommate was Katie Seagal. Katie was a singer, and I was a dancer, and God, can Katie sing.
Was she singing with Bette Midler at the time?
No, that happened after.
After, okay.
Yeah, she wound up being a harlot after. I mean, she is so incredibly talented. But Yeah, she. What was the question?
You came up initially as a dancer. So you were a gymnast,
dancer.
then a dancer, then you went right to Two Gentlemen from Verona. I mean, that's quite a leap, isn't it?
Well, my very first job, when I dropped out of college, much to my father's chagrin, was for Gene Kelly. I was a dancer in the chorus of something called Clown Around. And I thought, I had first of all, my family, no show business. Nobody had ever done anything like this. And we rehearsed for months and months at the old MGM when it was all closed down on one of the old stages that Gene had done his big show on. And I'm trying to think of the choreographer was in the original West Side Story. He was one of the dancers. Anyway, I can't remember right now, but we did this. We went out of town and we'd done 3 performances and we closed. And I went, but how can that happen? It's Gene Kelly.
Yeah.
I had no idea that something could close. I mean, I thought, now I was in showbiz. So then I came back and I was a chorus dancer auditioning for, I was a scab gold digger. When the Gold Diggers went on strike for the Dean Martin show, I was a baby. I was, 19 or 20, and I wound up being on that show.
Wow, it's
amazing.
It's amazing. Everybody's career takes different turns, but your career, you got off to I don't want to say a slow or a rocky start. But
yeah, it was slow.
It was nothing compared to your sister's career, and you must have been compared to your sister because your sister was 2-time Olympic champion Donna DeVerona.
Yeah, she's a big deal. We're very close, Donna and I, but always have been pretty competitive, and we've had our ups and downs, but we're very close.
Who's a better golfer?
Oh, I am. Oh, my God. You don't want to see Donna on land. Swimming, I can't compare. You don't want to see her swing a club or run or ski.
You still playing? I know you're still
I
playing.
am still playing.
Because I get reports from Steve Papazian and Dominic Bruno all the time that you're still playing. I don't know whether you remember this. I probably shouldn't remind you, but you were going to do a golf pilot with...
Oh, the one that didn't go, the one that Peter Tolan wrote.
Yes, and the one that I was supposed to produce, and I had signed a deal to produce. Well, I hadn't signed it. I had agreed to produce it, and then I pulled out of it.
I wish you hadn't. We might be on the air.
Well, I was offered Suddenly Susan. And
I got to direct that, too. You had me direct that.
Yes, I did. And now I'm going to have you direct Night Court.
Yes, I'm very excited about that.
You'll be terrific. Do you know John at all, Larquette?
I know him in passing. We know each other, but I don't know him. So this will be fun.
It will be fun.
He's so good.
Tell me, so you dropped out of UCLA to become a dancer and moved to New York at what, 19, 18? How old were you? 20?
Yeah. I was 19.
Wow, what a leap.
I was 19, and I remember saying, I'm going to New York. I need a pair of boots. So I went down and I bought a pair of boots. Of course, California boots aren't winter boots. I wore them once in one storm with all the salt, and they just fell apart when I got there. Yeah, it was exciting. It was, I don't know why. I didn't know what I didn't know. And my parents, God bless them, they didn't talk me out of it.
Yeah, your parents are funny. When I moved out here from New York, I went to school in Florida. My parents felt I was not going to be successful, but they never said it. They said, "Give it a try. Go ahead and do whatever you wanted, and you'll." In their mind, they thought you'll always come back. But I think you sort of, parents were the same way, very supportive, but quietly doubted you, maybe?
Yeah, I think because, Donna had been an Olympic champion, and she went on to be the first woman sportscaster. She was very influential in lobbying for Title IX, has fought for it, started the Women in Sports Foundation with Billie Jean King. I mean, she has done so much in her space and for women's rights, you know, way long before, because she was an amateur athlete in the Olympics. She was not paid. She did not have endorsements. And she came out of it and is, you know, kind of, you know, worked her way up the ladder all these years, but never had the career that these Olympians have now, because they're all represented. It's a professional, it's a business.
Yeah. Well, you broke a lot of glass ceilings yourself as a female director. It must have been hard for you to get jobs initially, and you know, now you're getting jobs. But you know, if you were anybody other than Joanna Kerns, you would probably not get the jobs because of your age and you know,
Gender.
Well, gender's
a good thing now.
Gender's a good thing. Age is never a good thing in show business.
Age is never a good thing, but
In or out of show business.
yeah, I do think, I mean, Mimi Leader and Leslie Lincoln Glatter and me and Bethany Rooney, we're all in this, you know, we've been doing it a long time. Melanie Mayron.
Right.
And we were kind of the early ones to wind up in primetime television and be hired again and again. But it was always a fight. There were literally shows that said, well, we don't hire women.
Yeah.
Or we're an action show. No, you need to do Lifetime stuff. It's been interesting, but good work begets good work.
Right.
And so I'm very excited now because I help teach this, occasionally teach the DGA New Episodic Directors Workshop and we do it all on Zoom now, and to look at all the faces and all the diversity and all the women. It's very exciting. Yeah. I mean, there was a handful of us for a very, very long time.
In the late 80s, it must have been impossible. I can only imagine what it was like for you.
Or doing a good job and then you only get one.
Yeah.
You know? And I mean, even on our show, our director, who I won't mention his name, who did the majority of our episodes, wouldn't let me shadow him.
That's crazy.
Wouldn't let me follow him to see what he did.
I don't know what they're threatened about, but they're just incredibly.
Well, I guess you could eliminate 50% of the competition if you don't let women in to begin with, right? I mean,
yeah.
That's one way of looking at it. But you had tremendous confidence in yourself, because I was doing research about you, of course. I mean, I know who you were and familiar with your work, but looking back at saying, like, after working for Joseph Papp in New York and working for Burgess Meredith, and then you go back to California, you're a backup dancer for Disney. I mean, the highs and lows of this business is flabbergasting to me for somebody who's, you know, not in the business.
And to endure for so long, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but
no.
you've had a long, illustrious career there. And you really, I'm not aware of any lulls in your career. I mean, you've worked pretty steadily all the way through.
Well, once it took off, as an actress, Growing Pains really did it for me. Mm-hmm. I'd come out from New York. I'd been here almost 10 years. I tested every year for 3, 4, 5 pilots. Didn't get them until I could play mothers. I guess I'm kind of a strong personality, so I was either the best friend, the Eve Arden type, you know, or the bossy friend, or the you know, disgruntled ex-wife, but I wasn't considered a lead until I could play moms. And that changed everything. Wow. And so I've been very fortunate to, as an actress, work as long as I have, but what happened to me on the acting front is first of all, as you get older, the roles aren't there. And suddenly I'm competing against Glenn Close and Meryl Streep for roles. I mean, if I was a producer, I'd pick Glenn Close. You know, it's for me, this transition into directing couldn't have happened at a better time. And if you would have asked me, I always said, I want to direct, I want to direct, I want to direct. But I thought I could do 4-camera, and still act, and then come back and do a season of 4-camera. And then 4-camera kind of went away for many years. There was a real lull because it got oversaturated with bad comedies. But when I stepped into the directing seat, I thought, you know, I love this. And it is infinitely complex. You never know what you're going to get. You know, every episode is different. All the players are different. It's exciting, and it's scary. It's good.
Yeah.
I think I must thrive on that. I love it.
Juice. You like the action.
And you realize how dependent you are on all the other people that are working for you.
They're everything. They're everything.
Let me just clarify something. When you guys, I mean, Frank knows obviously, but when you said 4-camera, is that like a genre, or are you thinking of the 4-camera
multiple camera,
multiple camera.
Yeah,
It's almost
camera
like
shoot.
a category.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, multiple camera shoots.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you maybe a question that is maybe slightly sensitive, but you had breast cancer. And what advice can you give to people who are undergoing that challenge? And what was it like for you?
Scary.
Terrifying. You know, I think it was really interesting. I was married at the time. My husband had a bad health year. And somehow I missed a mammogram. And I would do them every year because I had what they call dense breast tissue, which is very hard to read on a regular mammogram. So I would get a special, because I could afford it. Now this is a whole other conversation about women's health care and what we should do for women who have what I have, is I needed to do a contrast mammogram where they would inject a dye, and so that they could read the mammogram. And I missed a year, and I was getting ready to go on location to shoot a show, and I was missing some medication. I called my doctor, and she said, "Well, I'm not going to give it to you because you haven't done your mammogram in 2 years." I said, No, I did it last year. And she said, "No, you did not." So it was this whole rush to get this certain kind of mammogram, and not everybody does it. And I just remember going in, and I was driving between LA. Well, I'm going to go back a second, because Christina Applegate, I had directed her on My Sister Sam, and I directed the episode right after she came back after her preventative mastectomies. And I sat on stage with her, and we talked about what she'd gone through, and and I said, "Do you have any recommendations? Do you have any doctor that you would really recommend?" And she said, "Well, for any kind of breast health, I say Christy Funk." So I had started going to see this doctor who made me get this kind of mammogram, which no other doctor had made me get. So on this particular day, I had to pick up my old tests. So I went up to Christy Funk's office, and I got the images, and I'm coming down the elevator, and the elevator door opens, and there's Christina.
Wow.
And she said, "Why are you here?" And I said, "Oh, I have to go get this thing." And we said hello, and how are you doing, and all that. I go off, she gets in the elevator. And that night I went to a hospital on my way up to Santa Barbara, because I live up there, and I had a noon appointment, and I was still sitting there at 5, and I said, "This isn't good." And at the end of the day, the doctor came in, and he had my image up on the screen, and I could see it.
Whoa.
And because everything that isn't cancer falls away, and this was very bright. And I feel see, I'm a privileged white female.
Yeah.
That has the means to pay for that test. And if I hadn't found it, I wouldn't be here because it was very aggressive kind of cancer.
And you got the means also through your unions to
Yes.
pay for it. And
Pay for anything. I just went, yep. And I just dropped everything. And I made the decision to do the mastectomies and not do some of the other things that I would have been required to do. But I was fortunate because of
the diagnosis.
The diagnosis that I could get it, and most women don't get that. You know, and
iodine, is it an iodine they injected?
Yeah, it's an iodine. I think it's iodine. I just know you're a little radioactive after it. You know, it's like it's like the same thing that they do for heart stuff.
Yeah.
And 1 week later after you had your operation, that's when Alan died. Only 1 week later after that.
Yeah.
That's quite a double blow there.
It was a double whammy. And I had seen him, you know, it was a series of things because they can't just go in and do it. They have to go in and do they go and do a lumpectomy, and then they take that and they figure out what kind, and then they didn't get it all and they had to go back. I mean, it was.
So how long did it take between the diagnosis and the mastectomies?
A month.
A month. Well, that's pretty fast. And then how long did it take you to A, recuperate physically, and B, recuperate mentally?
Well, I think it was not an easy, you know, I'm blonde and your skin is thinner, so you don't heal the same way. It was a rough recovery for me. It took me a good 6 months to kind of get ready so I could do reconstruction. So it took me a long time. And, you know, recover mentally. I think I'm very aware now that I'm vulnerable to something that could happen. I'm careful. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was always careful, but it kind of coincided with a long marriage falling apart, and which happens. A lot of men leave their wives when they get breast cancer, and mine basically did that. So he wasn't out the door, but he was out the door. Yeah. So it was, I think that contributed to it being more difficult than it probably should have been.
Let me ask you another subject. Let's turn the page from that. Any roles that you passed on that you wish you hadn't?
Wow, that's a great question. That's an interesting question.
You know, I don't know. I mean, I know that I tested for things that I didn't get. It's not like I turned down, you know, some great movie role.
Yeah.
I've been a working actress since I've been 20 years old.
That's great.
And is that all your flexibility to that? Just being flexible, being willing to do what it takes, go where it takes?
Yeah, and I always say that, you know, when everybody says, "Oh, my daughter wants to be an actress," and I go, "Well, get ready."
Yeah.
This is a long road, and you better love it more than anything else because it is hard. And I think today, especially, it's tougher on actresses and actors because you're not auditioning in the room. You're auditioning
via
on
Zoom. Yeah.
And so nobody ever gets it's as good as it is, and I think Zoom is kind of like, thank God we had it during this pandemic, but it's not the same as being in the room.
And I don't believe it'll come back to being in the room.
No, I don't think
at
so
least
either.
The initials, the callbacks will probably be in person, and the network will surely be in person. But I don't think that the casting director will ever be in the room with the same act. You'll never see 20. You'll never be in the same room with 20 actors, all who look alike.
No, I won't see that room again.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Do you guys think it's because it's just cheaper for the industry to do that, or it's just more convenient, or why do you think that's going to be like the change is going to be permanent?
I think it's time as much as anything.
Right.
And everything's moving faster. 'Cause
Efficiency.
you got to remember when I started growing pains, we didn't have cell phones. We had one phone on stage,
Right.
you know, which Alan always had. So cell phones and, you know, all my production meetings, all my art department meetings, everything I'm doing on this show is on Zoom.
But those will go back to being in person.
I hope
I
so.
believe.
I hope
Because
so.
I know on a couple of my shows, they're chomping at the bit to get back to in-person table readings and in-person production meetings, because you know those meetings are done better in person.
I think so.
But
Instead of looking at 50 people on a screen.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you think actually, I mean, obviously you're thinking you lose something. If you have a table reading and you see the personalities and then they're in front of you and the chemistry is there, it makes a bigger difference than Zoom. I mean,
in the table readings for sure.
stand-up
For
comedy,
sure.
I don't see how you can do stand-up comedy on Zoom. You know, if you don't have that interconnection, that
No,
Especially comedy.
connection, yeah, with the audience,
Right.
the connection with the audience. You know, you have to have it. It makes it work.
But
Yeah.
Joanna, you have remarkable resolve, and I believe your dad was probably, you know, upper middle class, maybe. Where did you get that resolve from? Did you get it from your sister,
Well, you know, my parents
or did you
were
get it from your
really,
genes?
well, now my dad never, I mean, my dad had 4 kids and hated his job. He was a life insurance salesman. And all he wanted to do was be there for his kids when they did their sports.
Oh,
When
that's
my brother's football and my sister's swimming and I did gymnastics. And, you know, he loved that. It drove my mother crazy. My mother worked in a drugstore at night. You know, she, you know, made all our meals and still worked. And we were a middle class, lower middle class family. And I think what we knew was that we weren't going to get any financial help.
Right.
After, you know, we went all public schools, and where they spent their money was on our, like Donna with her swimming and me with my gymnastics. And they just said, you know, if you want to go to college, you're going to have to get a scholarship. And I think my sister was never, you know, because she swam so much, was never, you know, she was never a straight A student. And there was, if it hadn't been for this man in Detroit who heard her, I think, on a radio program saying that all these Olympians didn't have the money to go to college, he was in the automobile industry and he sponsored her through UCLA. And he actually gave me money to go to UCLA and about 10 other Olympians. He was a pretty remarkable guy. But I think we just always knew we had to do it on our own. I mean,
Yeah, you knew you had to do it on your own.
there was no safety net.
Right.
None.
Well, that's
Being a gymnast, and especially at the level that Joanna was, and being a swimmer like her sister was, the discipline is immeasurable. I mean, you got to have remarkable discipline to do that, and to want to do it, and every day to punish yourself, actually punish yourself.
Yeah, I think, you know, I always said to Donna, how do you do it? It's just so painful to swim. I thought gymnastics was fun. I just, you know, yeah, we all got hurt and it was hard, but I just thought just to swim back and forth. Now I love to swim.
I think you show remarkable courage, and I think it's a tribute to you that you're able to talk about the mastectomies and what you had to go through so openly. And what advice would you give women? Get tested off?
I just say, oh, be vigilant.
Be
Be
vigilant.
vigilant. And I think also vote for people in Congress who are going to support women's health.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. We're going backwards. You're saying, oh, no, every 5 years have a mammogram. No, you can't do that. 5 years, you're dead.
Yeah.
You know, and it's the poor women, as always,
Yes.
the less fortunate, who don't get the preventative steps they need to make sure they're okay. And breast cancer is a very they know so much more now And it's not a death sentence, but it is if you let it go.
Yeah.
And so I feel you just have to be vigilant. You have to do those tests. You have to self-exam, and you have to get a little political about it.
Yeah.
Joanna, this is Derek. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You can't see me, but you'll see me later.
Stop flirting on the air, Derek.
Got a great voice, Derek.
Thank you. What is a talent that you have that no one knows that you have? So if you were like an ice skater, or you were able to,
An artist.
He
yeah,
is flirting here.
A musician.
Be careful with this answer there, Joanna. He is flirting.
But no one knows. No one knows. What talent do I have that no one knows?
or it could be a hobby.
Well,
Her golfing is pretty. She's a pretty good.
my golfing. I love golfing.
Really?
Isn't it? I love it. I could go out, I could go out every day. My clubs are sitting here in the closet. I brought them up to Vancouver, and it's been pouring. And there's like 5 days of sun, and you can't get on a golf course. So
I would love, Frank purports to be this incredible golfer.
No.
So I'd love to see a match between Frank and Joanna. That would be.
I can arrange that.
Oh well,
Oh, yeah.
we can do that for sure.
We can do that.
We can do that for sure.
If you get the ball in the clown's mouth at the end, you get a free round, Frank. I don't know how this works,
Yeah, I had Tim O'Donnell and Frank and Steve Papazian up to play in Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
All right, nice, beautiful,
Yeah.
nice, awesome.
Bill, you have any final?
No, I just want to thank you for being on. I had a pleasure meeting you, and I think you're a very real gutsy woman. I appreciate that. And I mean that in the
Thank
nicest
you.
way I could say it. I mean, obviously a
he's
gutsy
speechless by your bravery. Definitely.
Thank you.
woman. I really am.
He who used to run into buildings, burning buildings on fire.
I got paid for it, Frank.
Oh my God, you were in the fire department during 9/11.
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
Thank you for your service.
Well,
Oh my
thank you very
God.
much. I appreciate that. It's a job, and one day it's not just a job. It's that's the way it works. 90% of our job is routine, and when it's not routine,
It's really
it's not routine. Yeah. So
Well, Joanna, I can't thank you enough for coming on. I look forward to seeing you this summer.
Yes.
On the Warner Brothers Stage 10.
Yes, for Night Court. I'm so
The Night
excited.
Court,
That's great.
It'll be great. And in between now and then, you'll be back between now and then, I hope, in Santa Barbara?
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe. It depends. If we have a shutdown or something like that, I'll probably come home.
All right.
But
Well, after that, we'll grab Papazian, Dominic, and go play golf.
we'll go play.
Yeah, we need
lovely,
to
All right.
lovely.
Thanks so much, Joanna.
Thank you so much, Joanna.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Pleasure. She was terrific.
Yeah, he's another great guest.
Yeah, she's a great guest.
Another great guest.
And I really meant that about being gutsy. I mean, not just to have the confidence in herself at such a young age to blow out of California and go into New York as a dancer and a gymnast, and then take steps like she did, with the two gentlemen of Verona and heavyweight.
Yeah.
James Joyce's heavyweight stuff. I mean, that's about as heavy as it gets.
And she's only a few years younger than us.
Yeah.
Wow, you guys need to get together.
Can you imagine how good she looks? I mean, she's an incredible woman. She's always been an incredible woman, and she's the nicest person in the world.
Oh yeah, very sweet, very sweet. It's funny. She talked about Christina Applegate, of course, who was married with children. That's how she made her.
Right.
Her co-star Ed O'Neill. I used to get mistaken for him all the time. Ed O'Neill.
I know Ed for 30 years, and
Really?
you look nothing like Ed O'Neill.
You know what?
You look like Ed O'Neill, like you sound like Dickie V.
Hey, you know what? Listen to this. He was born in County Cork. Did you know that
No, I
about
didn't
Ed
know that.
O'Neill? Yes, he was. He
Wow.
was born in County Cork.
Actually, you know what? There is a slight little.
I was just a 10 bar, and when that show first came on, Married with Children, I'd be 10 bar, and people would go, "Hey Al, give me a drink." Hey Al, and I said, "What the fuck is Al? What's this Al shit? Don't you watch Married with Children?" I said, "No, I don't watch it." They said, "Watch it. You look like the guy Al Bundy." And so then I started tending bar. I started milk. I used to wear a T-shirt with a Bert Dian stain on the back of it. Do the Ed O'Neill deal. you
Well,
know?
ironically, the movie that I was talking to Joanna about with Fanula Flanagan was the same movie that I met Ed O'Neill on, because Ed O'Neill was playing Keith Carradine's brother, Whitey Wishner, in the Winner Never Quits.
Yeah, well, because of that, the breaking my chops, these guys breaking my chops, Al. I did a little research and found out he was born in County Cork.
Yep.
But he's a real good actor. I thought he's a terrific actor.
Yeah, he's a rich actor too.
Yeah, he's terrific. He's not about rich, but he's a terrific actor.
I always say if you get one good run, you can be pretty well set for the rest of your life. Well, he had 2 runs of over 12 years, 10 to 12 years each, Married with Children and Modern Family.
What's that paycheck
Modern
look like,
Family.
Frank?
Big.
Is he a tall guy, Frank? Is he big? Is he like 6'3", 6'4"? How big?
He's not big, 6'3", 6'4", about 6'1".
6'1", yeah.
And he was a former football player in Steubenville, Ohio.
So legitimately, he was always in there with Married with Children.
Oh,
He was
yeah.
always doing the pose,
Yeah.
but he really was a football player.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always like him as an actor, a good actor. All right, so I guess we
Well,
wrap it up.
We've killed another one.
Don't say that.
Sorry.
For God's sake, don't say that.
Wait, before
Wait.
Go.
What about books?
Ah.
Oh, what about books? Yeah, read a book before you die. We're
What's your
killing people
quote?
in.
What's your quote about reading a book you know you're alive?
Oh, that's good. I like that. I don't know what's my quote, but I like it. I got to speak into the microphone, or I get chastised.
An hour and 10 minutes into the show.
When I say goodbye, I like to speak into the microphone. Otherwise, I get chastised. So that's what you don't read a book and know you're alive.
Read a book and know you're alive. According to Derek.
That's your quote.
That's my quote?
Yeah.
I'm very quotable.
We've done enough damage for one
We've
day.
certainly done enough damage.
We'll see you next week, folks.
Hopefully we see you next week, folks. Tune in, please. And
read books.
Read books.
Combustible, They Sleeps Could Talk, Lamar's Gamble, Confessions of a Bronx Bookie.
Read them all.
Read them all.
You can't miss.
Super Bowl's coming up.
Oh, yeah. Thanks very much for tuning in. We really appreciate it.
Next week's guest, chart-topping songwriter, J.T. Harding.
We'll see you next week.